Good.
It'll take me just a minute to do the tech part.
Hey, Suzanne.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm actually not looking. Who is talking?
Mike.
Mike.
Hi, Mike. Welcome. Yay. Nice to see you, my friend.
Good to see you too.
I just got the recording started and I'm just getting the live streaming set up on Facebook. So whoever else wants to join us is welcome. And then we'll jump right in.
Okay.
Our belief in making money is so deep.
All right. We are at the beginning of our wonderful webinar called Weight Loss Simplified. And I'm so grateful that I called my friend Dicken several weeks ago because I had this inspiration that so many people are suffering with this problem they call weight and this problem they call their body and food. And these things have been ongoing for so long that I wanted to share a conversation with him, who Dicken was actually the person that changed my life in relation to it 17 years ago. And I want to share a conversation with anyone else that was interested and thought it might touch their world. So your work today is to relax and just enjoy being here and being yourself. And we're not teaching new information. We're pointing you back to what's always been true in you, the wisdom that's in you, reminding you of what's possible when you drop back into that simplicity and that love and that kindness. And I want to start by introducing Dicken from my perspective, because Dicken came into my life. Oopsie. Can you guys mute yourself and I'll go ahead and mute all, and then Dicken, you unmute yourself.
Okay.
It's interesting. There we go. Okay, we'll have it a little quieter now. So Dickens came into my life because I was sitting at the park with my dear friend here in Colorado, and we were talking, and I was 3 months pregnant. I was 6 months pregnant with my second child, and I had a 2.5-year-old. And I said, Sumaya, I'm so sick of dealing with food. I just want to be able to eat and get on with my life. I don't want to have to think about it. I don't want to have to manage it. I don't want to have to worry about it. I had started dieting when I was 8 years old, and food was a big piece of my life. And Sumaya said, you might want to meet my friend Dicken. And I was like, okay, whatever. She's like, he's in Washington. I'm like, okay, I'm 6 months pregnant. I'm not going anywhere. And I called Dicken that afternoon, and we talked for about 45 minutes. And I don't have any clue what was said in that conversation, but what I know was that he was so present with me and so loving and so kind that I told my husband he had to call Dicken. And that's all I knew to tell him. And my husband was willing to call Dicken. And he did. And it was 3 weeks later that we were in Dicken's office for 4 days. And Dicken's way of being, that kind of love, and I can't give you tons of words from those days. I can give you that feeling of home. I can say that I felt like this all made a lot of sense to me, even though it challenged my mind, and that this guy was the real deal, and I liked him. And so that's my intro of Dicken. That's how I explain Dicken, and I'll go more into those details here in a minute, but I want Dicken to go ahead and speak for a little bit, and then we'll go from there. I've silenced Dicken. What's up with that? Let's try that.
There you go. It wouldn't let me unmute. It wouldn't let me unmute. So, well, it's great to be here, and thank you, Susanne. It's very kind. I think I was so fortunate to learn the principles, and it softened my life too in a lot of unexpected ways. And what I mean by soften my life was I was less invested in my thinking content, and my heart felt more open. And I think that's the beauty of when our minds are open and our hearts are open, unexpected things can occur to us. And I'm certainly not an expert on weight loss. So I was intrigued when Susanne asked me to do this with her, and I've been reflecting a lot on that, and so I'm looking forward to sharing with you some of that reflection. See if it's helpful in any way. I do have some good stories too. So.
Thank you. So I'll start by sharing what happened for me, which is my husband and I went to see Dicken, and I don't really have any grand recollection of the first 2 days with him. But what I remember was the third day, and I had settled, my whole system had settled a whole lot. I had slowed down like I hadn't slowed down in a long time. And I had found those deeper feelings again of love and connection and grace and ease, which is really easy to do when you're hanging out in LaConner, Washington with some cool dude and your husband, and it's a beautiful place. But there was something more as I kept leaning into my own wisdom and leaning out of my personal thinking. I call it the mind circus. I call it a lot of other things too. Sometimes they're not as politically correct, those terms. But we can get so caught in our personal thinking that we suffer and suffer and suffer. So by day 3, I was feeling pretty bold. Day 3, I said, okay, well, this is all great, but I've got the real issue. And the real issue is this food and body image thing. And I figured I was out of his league. I figured we were, this was one of those go home and figure out this problem, because it had always been this problem to be fixed. I had tried 12-step and it was helpful as long as I was doing a bunch of different things, but I'd never gotten to the root cause. And I had tried therapy, and I was a lifelong learner and still am to this day on about everything. But I said, Dicken, so I've got this eating disorder. I'm really good at eating too much food and then going out for a longer run. My philosophy was just run longer. Bigger problems, farther run. It worked until my body broke at times. Or bigger problems, eat less. Or some weird combination of it all. some frustrating, limiting combination of it all. And Dicken looked at me and he said, Susanne, what if you don't have a problem? What if food and body have just been your coping mechanisms until now? And what if you can make different choices going forward? And you know, there's those times when things sink into your bones and every cell in your body, and you know they're true. You don't know all the ramifications for your life, but you realize something you always knew, and this was something I always knew, but I didn't have words for it yet. I was given those words that day. And I went to bed that night and I didn't sleep. And that's, you know, I'm pregnant. There's all kinds of reasons, but I didn't sleep. And I knew in my soul, this was what I was here to teach. This was what I was here to share for the rest of my life, was that we are not our problems. We are not our personal thinking. We are not a problem to be solved. And there is something so much greater running the entire ship. And I don't know about any of you, but my mind likes control. This little mind, it worked with a lot. It's spent a lot of time trying to keep control of life. And all of a sudden I realized I didn't have to control life. And when I wasn't controlling life, food was no problem. I would eat and I would go on with my day. I would eat a good amount of food. I would eat healthy food. But when I thought I had a problem to be fixed, then I got all kinds of laser focus on the problem, and the problem seemed to magnify. And to let that completely sink in and know that no matter what your journey is with your body, your relationship is with your relationship is with your body. It's not bad food, good food. There's quality food. There's ways of putting in awesome nutrition. I've spent a lot of my career studying body, studying nutrition, studying health. There's a whole lot of good stuff. There's a whole lot of conflicting information as well. And when we get sucked into the information that's out there and go, well, how do I do this? And we lose the connection with our own wisdom that says, slow down and listen. Then we think food's the problem and we point the problem out there. But all we need to do is point back to the solution that's right inside of us. The weight loss industry wouldn't be a bazillion dollar industry if it had a solution. The solution's inside of every one of you. Every one of us knows what needs to be done. So I'm curious to stop there and just open it up and see if it's resonating for anyone. Or if any comments have come up. You can go ahead and raise your hand if you know how to do it on technology. If you open the participant, if you scroll over, let me just double check this. Somehow I'm not seeing the raise hand right this second. Yeah, if you double click on the participants in the bottom, and then you go to your name and go over more. That's not it. I apologize. I'm messing this one up. Who knows this answer? Where does raise your hand come in? Oh, I got a couple raised hands. I'm just going to take them.
Yeah.
Emma.
Hi. I guess I just wanted to say that I feel I've been on this Through Principles journey for a couple of years now, And it really, really resonates with pretty much every area of my life. And I feel like I've brought it into my work, into my interactions, my personal life. And it's really affected positive change for me, but really affected positive change for those around me. And people that I supervise at work have seen the difference. So, and pretty much every area of life, it lives. But with weight management, I just can't get it. I cannot get it. I cannot get it to apply. And I'm just really struggling with that. And I hear what you're saying about it just, kind of flowing with it. But when I let it flow, I continue to put on weight. So, there's something there for me that isn't okay.
Thanks for being real with that, Emma. First of all, thanks for showing up that way, because I'm sure that's true for other people on this call right this very second, and other people that will see this video.
Someone else had their hand up, Suzanne.
I just wanted there are a few hands up. Yeah. I wanted to go a little farther with Emma, if that was okay. Do you want to respond to Emma, Dicken?
No, go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So what my experience has been is that my food becomes a problem, or my body becomes a problem, or I default back to this day, to paying more attention to that part of me if there's something else I'm not addressing in my life. Because our problem can be a distraction from actually showing up fully in our greatness, showing up fully in a relationship if there's something that needs to be said. So we can get focused back on us having a problem and miss the wisdom that's trying to come through to say, what do I need to look at in my life? Does that resonate at all?
It does. It's still a little mysterious for me, but it does resonate. Thank you.
Are you open to being coached for just a moment?
Sure.
Yeah. If you knew an area of your life that could use some attention, what might it be?
Maybe my work-life balance.
And what would it need?
Maybe a different job. My job's a bit too busy, really.
Do you see how your wisdom gives you exactly what you need to know?
Yeah, I do wonder whether whether I've got a belief that I can't do something else with how I present now, because I'd like to be a coach, but I'm in a very safe, quite well-paid job. And maybe part of me is like, well, I can't do that while I'm overweight because I don't look like a role model enough. And maybe that belief keeps me there. I'm not quite sure.
Has anyone else on this call ever felt like, if I lost some weight, if my body was perfect, then I could move on with my life? Yeah, there's some hands. There's some hands. So we can get caught in problem to actually distract ourselves from what our wisdom is asking us to look at and really step into, because it's familiar. What are you feeling right now? I can't see Emma any longer. That was weird. She just popped up. Oh, here we go. Okay, let's go ahead and take Vicky. I've unmuted you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Hi. Oh, I've got a dog squeaking in the background, my daughter's dog. It's really lovely to be on your call. And as soon as I saw it pop up on Facebook, I was immediately attracted to contact you and be part of this conversation. And I haven't really got a question. I just wanted to be here and be part of it, and just kind of want to share where I'm at and see what comes from that, if I may. So I've been involved with the principles just for a relatively short time, and had never heard Dicken or speak with him until a couple of months ago. And something came up and I listened to it, and I just thought, he's a nice guy. And I went to a day with Michael and Dicken in June, which was a day about meditation. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. So that's one of the reasons. So via Dicken, I've come to meet you, Susanne, which is lovely. And for me, about May time, I was on a call with Michael Neal, and I was listening to it, and I had a real moment where something really dropped into place for me. And it was a story that he tells about, he was on a call with somebody, and he was talking about, it was a therapist who was working, and she said, mostly people come to me she was a kinesiologist. And he said, but I spend more time talking about the principles. And why would I give any other treatment or chat other than 3 principles? And Michael gave an example of, he had a penguin and held up a penguin and said, well, if the penguin had a broken foot, what's wrong with fixing the penguin's foot? Because we are not the penguin. And whatever was said in that moment, or whatever was said at that time, something fell into place for me very, very comfortably and easily. And I had a new understanding that I hadn't necessarily understood before. I had it, but I didn't have it. That I am not this physical being that I travel through my life in. And to go back maybe 30 years, I went to sports college and did a degree to become a sports teacher. I had a flatmate who was anorexic. I had people who had eating disorders around about me. I never suffered from anything like that. I just had a good, happy life, and weight was a little bit up and down. And then I started working for a McDonald's hamburgers as a manager, and I worked through that, and my weight went up and down, and I was happy. And then I started working with a slimming organisation in Scotland, and I helped people and kind of did that. I had 4 children, and my weight went up and down. And I've always just kind of come back, and I never really thought much about it. I just always had this relationship with my body and my food, and it was always wanting to be slimmer or to get somewhere. But somehow with this penguin analogy, everything just dropped away. You know, I am not this penguin that travels through. I am much more than that. And I have coached people through weight, and I always said, you know, everybody has a key. Everybody has a key for weight. It's just our job to help find it. And I hadn't put all those pieces together until suddenly your call came up, and I thought, shit, this is the key. You know, this is the key, that now I have an understanding that I can share to other people, that this is the key for each of us to come back to the self. And that is the key for each and every one of us. Yes, there's some skills that can go along, and yes, there's some guide. And so I've been through an NLP training, I've became a coach, but it never sat with me, and it still doesn't sit with me. And so I'm just sharing this kind of out loud in a way to, because I actually was on another call with Michael Neal, and sort of, I feel I'm in a position I want to retreat from the world. I'm still wanting to gather myself or do something. And yet I still have a calling, that I have something that I know. And so listening to you is really inspiring. I feel quite emotional as I listen. It's like, there's something here for me, and I don't yet know what it is. So that's kind of where I'm at. And I don't know if you have anything you'd like to comment on that, or feedback that may point me in a direction.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for showing up, Vicki.
My
Thanks
pleasure.
for showing up. Yeah. So are you open to being coached for a moment?
Yes.
If you knew what that next step that you're being called into was, what would it be?
So the very first thing that came to my mind was to offer myself. And then I pulled back from it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that was the very first thing. So that is in line with where I am currently at, that so in retreat and also wanting to offer. So there's something there.
Mm-hmm.
That's
So
good to know.
your wisdom's coming forth and saying to show up in the world.
Yes.
And then the personal thinking says, no, I need to be more than I am.
Yes, possibly. Possibly.
When would now be a good time to step into that?
I think I'm dipping my toe in already.
Mm-hmm.
And turning up in this call, I think, is another step in that for me. So I guess as I say that, it's like half my foot's in the water as we speak, and that's quite nice. It feels warm. It doesn't feel like I have to retract.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
That's exciting.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, it really is.
Thank you, Vicki.
Thank you.
Okay, Wendy.
There we go. Okay. Thank you. I'm very much in line with what Emma mentioned, that the three principle awareness and understanding how my experience is generated has qualitatively, quantitatively changed so much of many parts of my life. And I'm 62 years old, and I've been overweight 58 of those years or something like that. Like I've been carrying more than I should ever since I was a little kid. And there's just what feels very, very real is like, this is just the way it is. This is just the way it is. And this is who I am. And I'm just not one of those women that's going to be, lithe. And, again, I'm 62. I mean, there's only so much that I can accomplish with a smaller. I mean, I'm not going to go out and, run the Olympics or anything, but I would like to be much more active and smaller. And I would like to wear the kind of clothes that I think are attractive. And I'd like to be healthier, that I hope goes without saying. But there is just something that feels like everything is open and available with this awareness. And this feels very fixed. This doesn't feel, and I have some really, really good, I mean, really interesting stories as to why I am outside of the norm. I have some, I mean, they would be impressive. You'd like to hear them, I'm sure. So anyway, I'm being somewhat facetious, but yet they do have a hold on me, these stories of, what went down. And I know I could make you go, ooh, that's interesting, but we won't need to go there. But anyway, so yeah, so this whole conversation, and I really appreciate Dicken. I've had the the opportunity to spend the past summers in a 3-day workshop with him. And I know you, Dicken, is a kind soul and your ability to communicate something of depth and weight that can shift. I've experienced it before, so I was excited to be a part of this conversation. Am excited.
I know when I have problems, for a long time, I looked at it as a thought problem. So I'd think about my problem and then I'd try to be aware of when I wasn't feeling good and to see that as thought. So I put a lot of attention in 3P teaching these days is about the thought-feeling connection. And I think it's very, very important to talk about the principle of mind and to gain a deeper understanding of our connection to the universal intelligence of life or behind life. And I find that the more I've had insight into the capacity of that intelligence to bring me something new and fresh, the more interested in I am when I'm interested in seeing something different to look in that direction. So I wanted to say a couple of things about what I meant by look in that direction. The power of wisdom to bring us new and fresh. Because often when we feel like we have a problem with anything, we've got the same old thinking, the same old feelings, the same old behaviors. So the cure would be new and fresh. So I'd like to tell a story first, if I can, because I think it demonstrates what I'm talking about very dramatically. I was working with a man and we had had a number of sessions, and he was really had some insights initially, as we often do, about the principle of thought. And he started seeing how much of the time he would start feeling impatient or frustrated or upset, or he'd do things and he'd feel guilty about it, like eating. He was very much overweight. And then he'd get confused trying to figure out how best to deal with it. So he started seeing a lot of that as thought. And when we really see that what's sort of weighing on us is being created from within by our own thinking, it can be enormously helpful for people to start uncovering what's in the way of this deeper knowing, our wisdom. So there's that aspect of it. And sometimes when I work with clients, that's enough for people to start changing, because they get out from underneath the feelings that are so uncomfortable. And then they look for something. You hear about emotional eating, where people eat in order to take the edge off, in the same way some people have a drink and go. You'll hear some people say at the end of a day, oh boy, it's been a rough day. I need a drink now, right? And I know certainly I've used drink that way, I've used food that way. And so as we start getting out from underneath the tension that we're walking around with during the day, there's less and less likelihood we look for something on the outside to make us feel better. So sometimes that's enough for people, is to learn more about the principle of thought. And sometimes it's not enough. Sometimes it's not enough because they don't have much faith and trust that the answer is truly going to come from within themselves. So they keep looking, they keep reading about how to deal with this problem by other people and keep looking outside for the answers, looking to experts for the answer. So I'd had several sessions with this client, and he was doing a lot better. He was getting unburdened by a lot of his thinking, which was, who wouldn't benefit from that, right? Have less thought burden, less tension, less stress, less worry, less just being caught up in our thinking so we're not fully in the now enjoying life. And he comes into the session one day and he goes, okay, Dicken, we've had a lot of laughs and we've had a lot of fun, but now's the time to get serious. I just met with my doctor and he says, I'm going to die. He told me I'm going to die if I don't lose weight immediately. And oh my God, I'm so upset. And I'm going to do Weight Watchers again because I did that once and it helped me. And I'm going to do this. And he went on and on for about 15 minutes. And I said to him, I'm just curious. I can tell that you're taking this very seriously, but I can also tell that right now you're living in an enormous amount of upset and tension. And he says, yeah, but this is important. This is serious. So I got to get serious about this. I said, well, I don't know about you, but when I live with that much tension for a long time, it doesn't help me deal with my problems any better. And he goes, well, what are you suggesting? How's this going to get? I've already figured out the answer. And I said, okay, well, that may be the answer, but I find that answers don't come to us when we're in that kind of feeling. While we're thinking about what we think the problem is, most often the way we're thinking about it creates some degree of tension. That's what I heard in Susanne saying, if I focus on it as a problem, I can think about it in a way that just generates more tension. And I get caught up in that thinking over and over again, same thoughts, same feelings, same behaviors. So whenever I hear anybody say, every area of my life is starting to go well, but one area, I know that one area is an area the person does an awful lot of thinking about. Mm-hmm. And most of that thinking generates some degree of tension. So it is helpful to begin to wake up to the fact of thought. If we really see how thinking about something is generating tension, we begin to, because we have free will, we have the option at that point to keep thinking about it and creating more tension or dropping the thoughts that are creating that tension. Sid Banks would say, if you really see thought, it'll wake you up to the now. The now is just where we're not holding any thought in mind. But then people go, okay, I have no thought in mind. How am I going to solve this problem? I'm feeling better, but big deal. I still got the problem. And then we start thinking about it again. What keeps us from thinking about it again? Faith and trust that there's a deeper intelligence, that if we're open, it will bring us new and fresh. So if I have an ongoing problem, the problem is I haven't gotten any new and fresh. Okay. Back to my client. He's in the office. He's going, okay, so how am I going to deal with this problem if I don't think about it? I said, how long have you been thinking about this? And he says, since yesterday when I met with the doctor. And I said, well, you've been learning, I know you have, that in moments when our mind gets really quiet, it's possible to get something new and fresh. And I just don't think the way you're thinking about this now is going to help you get anything new and fresh. And he quieted down for the first time. He got really quiet. He says, well, I still don't know what to do, Dicken, but I feel better. I said, well, just see what occurs to you. I think you're going in the right direction right now, but I want you to just see what occurs to you. Now, people used to call wisdom the still small voice within. It's like a little whisper. And some of you, as Susanne was talking to some of you, I could see you stop, reflect, and then you'd listen to that little voice. It would come in, well, maybe it's my work-life balance. Maybe, right? That's like a new and fresh thought coming in. Learning to listen for and trust the whispers of wisdom is what helps us move into new territory that we've never been in before in regards to something in our life. So my client came in the next session and he says, Dicken, right after our session, I left feeling so much better than when I came in. Boy, was I panicked. I mean, I thought I was going to die any minute, and I'm panicked. And I left feeling better, and I'm walking home. And for whatever reason, I decided I would listen to and trust my own wisdom. He says, I went into a grocery store on the way home, and I bought food I knew would be good for me. And I went home and I went through my cupboards, and I was shocked at how much food I had that was not good for me. And I threw it all away. Didn't even think about it. I'm just trusting what I know would be helpful. He says, I think I'm going to just keep going with my own wisdom here and see how far it takes me. I don't think I'm going to do Weight Watchers. He says, now that I reflect on it, it seems like that'd be one more way. I'm looking to the outside for answers. I'm relying on something on the outside. What happened, I did Weight Watchers before and it helped me enormously. And then as soon as I stopped Weight Watchers, I was right back to where I was before. Because I hadn't really had a shift in how I see things, how I look at things. So I continued to meet with this client for a while, and he came in one session and he said, I went to see my doctor, my cardiologist, because he had had all kinds of problems. And my doctor said, I need to talk to you in my office. And I went, oh no, he's going to give me the bad news. Oh God. And he panicked again. And he goes in the office and the doctor says, I have a lot of clients. And first of all, I want to say, Ernie, you got some really bad news from me, and you seem, the past couple of times I've seen you, you've seemed so happy. I don't get that. How can you be so happy? And he said, but what I really want to know is, how did you ever lose 50 pounds when you didn't even go on a diet? And he says, well, I've been learning about listening to and trusting my own inner wisdom. And I can see how my thinking gets in the way of that. And I'm really starting to trust that little whisper. He says, where are you learning this, Ernie? He says, well, from Dr. Bettinger. He's a psychologist in town. The guy called me up and he said, what are you telling your clients? And so I met with him and I gave him a copy of the Sid's Missing Link, and we had a nice chat. So it's helpful to get unburdened by the thinking that keeps us stressing out about something that we don't like how it's going or how we are. To become more aware of how much thinking we can do about something. And no one can think their way to wisdom, but it's very important to begin to realize more deeply we're connected to the intelligence that knows how to create universes. We're all part of the same energy field. It's not a problem for the universal intelligence that knows how to create universes to bring you a new thought. So I've done that with many, many areas of my life, not just food, but with things like exercise, things like relationships. And it starts with humility, where I go, I don't have a clue how to deal with this. If I go into my memory, I'll think I know how to deal with it. And if I run to some other expert, I think I'll know how to deal with it. But to tell you the truth, I don't have a clue how to deal with this, but I sure would like to see something new. So I'm going to open up to having some new thinking about this. That's how I used to write poetry. I'd like to get a new thinking about this tree. It's a beautiful tree. And I'd sit quietly, and lo and behold, new words and images and phrases would pop into my mind, and that's how I'd write poetry. I started saying, why don't I do that with my problems? I never see it as an opportunity to be creative, to get quiet. And if I get quiet and in a nice feeling and no words come, but I feel better, I know that's the answer from wisdom for now. Because one time I went for a couple of months having no clue how to deal with something. I was traveling constantly. I wasn't eating very well. I wasn't exercising. I'm on the road every other week. I'm staying in hotels. And I'm going, I hate how I feel. I got to see something new about this. Got to see something new about this. So it wasn't until a while later, but you see, the seed has been planted. I'm open to getting something new, to see it fresh, to feel it differently, to get new ideas. I'm open to that. So my wife and I were on vacation with our kids, and I see a bookstore, and usually I'd run right into the spiritual section, but I was learning to let wisdom guide me. So I walk into the bookstore, the first time in my life, I walk over to the fitness section. Now listen to this. You know how when you stand looking at books, a certain title jumps out at you? It's sort of like wisdom goes, take a look at that one. So I pulled it out, and it was an exercise program. This was years ago when I thought of myself as extremely young. And it was an exercise program designed by a physical fitness guy for the elderly so they wouldn't get injured. So instead of doing really heavy, straining, grunting, lifting heavy weights, it was taking really light weights, like anything you have in your house, and doing lots of repetitions with it. So you do a lot of repetitions with a lightweight, and it tones you up extremely well. It doesn't bulk you up, but it tones you up really well. I go back to the place where we're staying. I pick up some cans of food, and I start I start doing stuff, and I start looking at all the things I can sort of move and how I can bend. I did that for years because I'm traveling, right? And I couldn't take barbells with me on the road. So it's like I'm moving stuff around in every hotel room. I'm looking around for what I can lift up, and I'm getting stronger and stronger. I just fell in love with movement and exercise, and it surprised the heck out of me. And I became incredibly toned. I've never been all that interested in having a Mr. America body, but I was healthy. And then I found ways of eating better on the road just because I started listening for my own common sense. Now, often when I work with people who have some kind of major problem, that's one area of their life where they have not been listening for wisdom, their own wisdom. They've been thinking about it and looking for answers from what we know or from what we read or what we Google or from experts. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with seeing what an expert says. I've learned some great things about nutrition by reading and Googling, but it's my wisdom that guides my life and my choices and how I see things and how I respond to things. And I started seeing it almost like the game of life is to go out, have fun, get in a good feeling, and if something isn't right, run full speed to wisdom, which is to not knowing. I don't have a clue how to deal with this, but I sure would like to get some new thinking about this. This is now how I prepare for this webinar. It's how I prepare for talks. It's how I prepare for clients. It's how I love to get quiet and see what new and fresh can come. So pretty soon you get to be an expert at listening for and trusting new and fresh. And when I see somebody having a problem, I know in that area of their life, they're not listening for and trusting and enjoying listening for wisdom. Completely new thought that you haven't had before about this. A new perspective, a different attitude about it, a different feeling. And that's where the answers lie. That's what, in that quiet, the answer to every one of our problem lies. So that's what I learned from Sid Banks. Instead of looking outside for the answers, look within, in the quiet of your mind. That's the only place you'll find answers that uplift and sustain and shift how you see something. And I've done that with people with all kinds of addictions. I talked to somebody yesterday with an addiction to porn. And he was starting to get concerned about it because it consumed his life. And if he's open to getting new and fresh, his own wisdom will guide him to find a different way of looking at it. You get new thoughts, you get new feelings, you get new behaviors. If you don't get new thinking, you don't get new behaviors. They're just the caboose on the train. So I don't know. I wanted to just throw that out as something for you folks to consider. And would anybody like to ask a question about that or make a comment on that? Because that's what I saw Susanne did. She sort of woke up out of the chronic thinking about this as a problem and then started listening to what occurred to her fresh and new. And that's when I see anybody sort of change something big that's been a certain way in their life for a long time. Less thinking, more wisdom. That's my bumper sticker.
I love it, Dicken.
So would anybody like to comment or ask questions? We have a little bit of time left.
We still have 2 people waiting with questions, so I'm going to go ahead and continue with those.
Okay.
Justin, do you want to bring it on?
Sure. Thanks,
Hi.
Suzanne. Thank you, Dicken. It was funny. It didn't even occur to me really until I got on the call that I've been pretty obsessed with eating probably since I was a teenager. And as I got introduced to a healthier way to live, I'll put it, and actually working with Jason Burv and a mutual friend of a lot of ours here, a couple of years ago, as I was kind of facing significant amount of stress across the board as business and careers and things were not working as expected. And it was really interesting just kind of reflecting the difference between trying to lose weight through, intermittent fasting and exercise and the grind of self-discipline, which, works to a point. But it was funny. I stopped weighing myself. I stopped stressing about it. And, I'm down to kind of my fighting weight from college without a lot of effort. And, you know, it was just fascinating to me that I stopped worrying about it. So when you said earlier about the, you know, the thinking about the problem, there was a period where I would, you know, weigh myself daily to see if I'd made that incremental, you know, half a pound loss. And I've started to notice that across the board with other habits. I'm realizing that are just habits or sort of symptoms of, you know, they're sort of deflections, or I love how you said the caboose on the train. So I guess, I don't know, I just want to hear you say more about that. And it seems like a fluke when I kind of look at it, but I just feel better and it doesn't bother me as much, and I don't think about it that much. And then lo and behold, I went and hopped on the scale and all of a sudden I was quite a bit lighter. And that's actually maintained for quite a while. So I was just kind of curious about that, if that sort of aligns with your experience and how this works.
Well, that's often stressing less or worrying less about something we think is a problem begins to unburden our minds so they are more open to the present moment, where we start to enjoy life again rather than have this on our minds in a way that weighs on us. And then as we learn more about the capacity of our mind, the intelligence behind our mind, the beauty of wisdom, the way it operates in the universe, the way it operates through us, we begin to be more and more, we get better at listening for that whisper and trusting it. I know a lot of people hear these thoughts come in, oh, I could do this, or I could do that, and then they don't pay attention to it, or they don't know that that's wisdom bringing us a new and fresh thought that's worth paying attention to. So that's, you begin to find that balance. So I see stress then becomes a beautiful thing. It's a call to wisdom. I used to think stress is just letting you know you're thinking. Now I go, stress is a call to wisdom. See the difference? A problem is a call to wisdom. Difficulty in your relationships is a call to wisdom. It's not a statement. The feeling is not a statement about your problem. It's a wake-up call from this universal intelligence. Thank God I feel confused and stressed and anxious and worried. That feeling is trying to wake me up like an alarm clock to the now so that I can hear wisdom better.
Have you tended to see that when that feeling kind of gets ignored for a long period of time, it gets amplified, and that's where it tends to manifest as a physical?
It becomes then just a psychological cycle rather than a psychological spiritual cycle. Psychological cycle is, I'm stressed, I know it's thought, okay, I'll drop it. But we're not at all open to wisdom. So we just are stressing, dropping, and nothing really changes. You see, nothing really changes. Stress is an invitation to fall into a space where our feelings become more friendly. So it awakens our heart, it awakens love, where we feel we come back to the now and feel more connected, right? And then when we're in that feeling, wisdom loves to break through into human consciousness when we're fully present to life. And so you get better. One time Sid Banks said, if the only thing people learned from learning these principles was what it means to listen for and to follow your common sense, he said everything would change for people. Their whole life would change. The whole world would change if people did that. It's what people don't do. So when people rely too much on the intellect and there's no balance between intellect and wisdom, everything gets out of skew in your life. We get out of, there's no balance with wisdom is what nourishes us. It brings us feelings that uplift and then new and fresh thinking. So if we have an area of our life that continues to be a problem, for whatever reason, we're not being open to the new and fresh. And as soon as we look in that direction, something starts to move and change. Wisdom is such a responsive intelligence. It's unbelievable. It really is unbelievable. That's why when Susanne got her thinking out of the way and listened to that whisper and trusted it, her life began to change on a fundamental level that cut across the board, because now she's open to and trusting wisdom more, so she starts getting a balance between intellect and wisdom, and it starts then changing every part of her life. Do we have time for one more, Suzanne?
You know, it is 1 o'clock, so I just want to honor time and say that if anyone needs to go, please. Are you good to stay for a few minutes, Dicken?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, great. So if anyone needs to sign off, thank you so much for showing up. And please reach out if you need anything. Coaching is what I do. Coaching is what I love, helping people walk out of their personal thinking and back into their greatness, which is found in their wisdom, is what I do. So reach out. I am offering everyone a free half-an-hour session. So reach out on Facebook or from the email. I'll send the recording out tomorrow. Molly still has a question here, and if anyone else has questions, please stay on, and we'll stay on for a few minutes and we'll keep going. Have a wonderful afternoon or evening, depending on where you are. Thanks for showing up.
So who had their hand up, Suzanne?
Okay, Molly.
Molly, great.
Hello. Hi, Dicken.
Hi, Molly.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, so at the beginning of the call when Susanne was talking about what Dicken had said to her, saying, what if you don't have a problem? What if this is just a coping mechanism? I had a flash of a thought which came from a very deep, real place, which was like, yeah, duh. For me, it's about sex. And it just came from a real simple place. And I was like, yeah, okay. And it, it's not necessarily the first time I've put that together, but today it just seems so simple. My eating is not really out of control at all. It's very healthy. But there's this feeling since I was a little kid, wandering the streets of London alone and being accosted by all these men all the time, that being heavier would be smart, a deterrent.
Yeah.
And it's just being so sensitive that, the horror of being pawed all the time. It feels like I just need extra weight to make myself unattractive. And it seems like no matter what I did in terms of diet or working out, I would hang on to the weight for safety. And anyway, I've been listening and it's like, well, yeah, I haven't had much fresh thought on that. And I know that I've been sort of stuck in this hypervigilant muscle tension my whole life. And so like I've read everything about trauma and on and on and on. I just don't know how to let go of that and relax into my body, to not fight all the time.
I don't know either, Molly, but wisdom does.
Yeah.
Wisdom knows. You see, that's the thing. We think we need to know, or somebody else will know and tell us. And wisdom knows. I've just learned to have so much respect for the incredible responsive nature of wisdom to bring us exactly what we need if we really are open to it. If we're trusting in this deeper intelligence and are just open to getting something new and fresh while living in the unknown, not knowing. This totally changed my parenting. I wasn't even expecting that. It totally changed if something was not going well with one of my kids, I used to go, I know what the problem is. And then I'd act on it. And as soon as I started going, I don't have a clue how to deal with this, I'd get new and fresh. It wasn't in the books. It wasn't in the books. I literally threw away my parenting books because I started this, and I offered a free course in our town on parenting from common sense. People loved it because it was a new way of learning to trust, listen for and trust your own common sense. So. And I want to say one more thing. If you're really open to wisdom, you think you know what the answer will be if wisdom brings it to you, but you don't. Often what wisdom brings us is something, it might even be helpful, just a new way of thinking about a different part of your life that you didn't even know was connected, like Susanne talked about. Could be. Could be. You never know. You never know. But that radical openness to new and fresh, and knowing that if you have difficulty, if you let go of everything you think about it, you go into the unknown, into the spiritual dimension of life, right? And then something different can come through. Yeah, you never have to worry about what wisdom is going to bring you. I've never seen anybody, when wisdom moves them in a certain way or brings them something new and fresh, I've never had any client ever in all these years go, I hate it. I'm going back to my old ways where I wasn't happy. Geez, I thought wisdom was going to bring me this, and it didn't. It brought me something else that was way better, but I'm really disappointed it didn't bring me what I thought it should bring me. Yeah. It's called wisdom for a reason. Otherwise, it'd be called the great betrayer, right? Or some other unsavory term.
And Molly, I just want to acknowledge your wisdom that allowed you to share that right here. Because being able to get out of our own personal thinking and whatever our story is, and to actually share it publicly where none of us are caught in that. And so we get to witness you coming back into your wisdom and giving yourself the opportunity to make it, to allow something new to come right this moment. So I hugely honor that and thank you.
All right, Susanne, I
think we did it. There was one other question, but it's dropped off. So I think we're in great shape.
feels like a good spot then.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Dicken.
Oh, you're welcome, Susanne. I love doing this.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you again, too.
So wonderful to see everybody. Thank you, everyone. I will send out the recording. If I don't have your email, send it to me. And I'll send out the recording as soon as I have it.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for showing up. Emma, I'm responding to your thank you. I lost you when you can unmute yourself if you like. I lost you there for a hot second, obviously. Can you unmute?
Yeah.
We're getting you, there we go. Okay. I lost you for a hot second.
Yeah, no, my connection just I just got kicked off Zoom, so sorry about that.
I think the same might have happened to the last person we were talking to as well. It's so funny. It's technology is so great that way. But incredible work.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. It's a real honor to be on the call tonight. It really is.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're
It's really
welcome.
appreciated. And it has brought me something new.
Great.
Thank
All
you
the
so much.
best.
Take care. Thank
Have
you.
a great
Bye.
evening.
You
Bless
too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.